Right now, somewhere in the United States, someone is living in a home that cost less than a used car. It's warm in winter, cool in summer, and it's built almost entirely out of straw. Not sticks, not mud huts. Straw. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why builders are quietly going back to this 100-year-old idea. Here's the strange part. This isn't some experimental prototype. Straw bale homes have survived over 100 years of Nebraska winters. But if they work this well, why isn't everyone building this way? Stick around, because the answer says a lot about how the housing industry actually works, and about a much bigger question: what if the cheapest way to build a home was also one of the strongest? Back in the 1880s, settlers on the Nebraska plains had a problem. There were almost no trees, so there was no wood to build with, and hauling lumber in by train was slow and expensive. But there was one thing they had in huge supply: straw, left over after wheat harvests, sitting in piles with nowhere to go. So they did something clever. They stacked straw bales like giant bricks, covered them in a thick coat of plaster, and built houses that were shockingly warm through brutal prairie winters. Decades later, when some of these original houses were finally taken apart or renovated, builders found something incredible. The straw inside hadn't rotted. It hadn't collapsed under the weight of the roof. Some of these homes were still standing strong after more than 100 years, with the straw inside looking almost as fresh as the day it was baled. That discovery is exactly why straw bale building never actually disappeared. It just went quiet for a while, waiting for a moment like this one, when regular housing became almost impossible for an average family to afford. Now let's talk about why this matters so much today. The average cost to build a traditional house in the US has crossed well over $300,000, and in a lot of cities that number climbs even higher. Add the price of land, permits, and years of interest on a mortgage, and a lot of families are looking at 30 years of monthly payments just to have a roof over their heads. Meanwhile, wages haven't kept up with any of this. Renters in many parts of the country are spending closer to half their income just on housing alone. And first-time buyers are getting pushed further and further out of the market every single year, watching homeownership turn into something that feels reserved for people who already have money. This isn't just an inconvenience. It's becoming one of the biggest financial pressures an entire generation is facing, shaping where people live, when they start families, and how much they can actually save. So when people hear that a real, livable house can be built for a fraction of that cost, using a material that's practically a farming byproduct, it's worth paying attention. It's already happening in states across the country. And it's not just about money. When housing becomes unreachable, people delay having families. They move away from communities they grew up in, chasing lower costs somewhere else. Some end up stuck renting for life, with nothing to show for decades of payments except a folder full of receipts. It changes how entire towns grow, or don't grow at all, as younger generations get priced out of the places they were raised. This is exactly why alternative building methods are having a quiet resurgence right now. Not because they're trendy, but because for a lot of people, they're becoming the only realistic path to actually owning something outright. So here's how it actually works. A straw bale house isn't just a hut with straw walls stacked up and hoped for the best. The bales are stacked like giant bricks around a wooden or steel frame that carries the structural weight of the roof. Once the walls are up and trimmed into shape, they get covered in a thick layer of natural plaster, usually lime-based or clay-based, applied on both the inside and outside in a few coats. That plaster does two critical jobs. It protects the straw from moisture, and it turns the wall into something incredibly solid, almost like a soft, breathable stone wall. And here's what surprises most people. Independent lab testing has measured straw bale walls at an R value in the high 20s to low 30s, roughly double a standard wood frame wall once you account for heat escaping through the studs. That means lower heating bills in winter, a home that stays cool in summer without the AC running non-stop. And those thick walls also block outside noise well. As for cost, a small owner-built straw bale home in the 400 to 600 square foot range can realistically come in under $20,000 when the labor is done by the owner, and materials like straw, lumber, and clay are sourced locally instead of shipped in. Larger, contractor-built versions cost more, but they still land far below traditional construction per square foot. If you're seriously considering this, here are a few things that matter most. First, always keep your straw bales dry before and during construction, and never let them sit uncovered if rain is in the forecast. Moisture is the only real enemy here. Not fire, not pests. Moisture. Second, build a solid foundation with a raised base, so the bottom row of bales sits above ground level and never touches damp soil directly. Third, check your local building codes early, before you buy a single bale. Straw bale construction is legally recognized in many states now, but permitting rules vary a lot by county, so this should be one of your very first steps, not an afterthought. Fourth, budget extra time for the plastering stage. It's more labor-intensive than most people expect, but it's also the step that makes the biggest difference in how long your home will actually last. And fifth, if possible, orient your home to take advantage of passive solar heating, with larger windows facing south, so the thick walls can store and release warmth naturally throughout the day. And finally, if you're new to this, consider joining a local natural building workshop before you start your own project. Many of these workshops are hands-on, and some even let you help build a real house from start to finish before committing to your own build. Now, a few mistakes that can turn a great straw bale build into a real disaster. The biggest one is skipping the roof overhang. Without wide eaves to keep rain off the walls, moisture creeps in over time, and the whole point of the plaster protection quietly fails from the outside in. Here's a pattern that shows up again and again with first-time builders. The walls go up fine, but there's a gap before the plaster crew arrives, and nobody plans for weather during that window. One storm rolls through, the exposed bales soak through, and weeks of work have to be torn out and rebuilt. It's rarely one big mistake. It's usually one skipped step nobody budgeted time for. And one mistake that genuinely surprises beginners, using the wrong type of plaster entirely. Cement-based plaster traps moisture inside the wall instead of letting it breathe out naturally, which can actually cause the straw to rot slowly from the inside, hidden behind a wall that looks fine. Natural, breathable plasters are almost always the better long-term choice. Here's the fact that surprises almost everyone watching this. You'd think straw would be an obvious fire hazard, right? Loosely piled straw actually is. But once it's compressed tightly into a bale and covered in plaster, it becomes so dense that oxygen can barely reach the fibers inside. In fire resistance testing, plastered straw bale walls have held up for 1 to 2 hours before failing, depending on the plaster used, matching or beating many standard wood frame wall assemblies. So why isn't this everywhere yet? Mostly because most banks still don't know how to appraise or finance a home type they don't fully understand, making mortgages harder to get. Most cities are also built around one standard way of doing things, and change moves slowly through zoning offices. But that's shifting, slowly, county by county, as more people prove it works, and more banks start catching up. Every straw bale home that's still standing after 100 years is quiet proof that the housing crisis might not need a complicated, expensive fix. Sometimes the answer was already sitting in a field, waiting to be baled. If this opened your eyes to a housing option you'd never considered before, subscribe, because next week we're breaking down exactly how much land, which permits, and what tools you'd realistically need to start your own build from scratch. And if you know someone drowning in rent right now, wondering if owning a home is even possible anymore, send them this video. Sometimes the best gift isn't advice, it's information they didn't know existed.